rain falls like judgment on a world of broken promises. They say you can measure a man by what he does when no one is watching. But the true test comes when powerful men are watching. Men who can erase your existence with a phone call, who can turn your ordinary life into a desperate fight for survival before the night is through. 20 years in the military teaches you to recognize threats, to neutralize dangers before they materialize. But nothing prepares you for the moment when the enemy targets what you love most. When the shadows you thought you'd left behind in distant deserts suddenly darken your own doorstep. When the company you hope will save your future becomes the very force threatening to destroy it. Some say fate is cruel. I say fate is simply waiting. Waiting to see what you're made of when everything you've built comes crashing down around you. Waiting to see if you'll break or if you'll become the weapon you were trained to be. Tonight, they'll find out. The rain hammered against the windows of Pete's Gas and Go like nature's own artillery. Each drop another soldier in an endless assault. Michael Reeves wiped the sweat from his brow with a worn shop rag. The familiar scent of motor oil and gasoline, his constant companions. At 53, his body kept a running tally of every injury and strain, the lingering ache in his left knee from a parachute landing gone wrong in Afghanistan, the tightness across his shoulders from hours bent over engines, and the newer pain of watching his life's work slip away, one overdue bill at a time. The clock on the wall read 11:47 p.m., almost time to lock up and head home to Lily. The thought of his 12-year-old daughter waiting at Mrs. Henderson's place next door brought a tired smile to his weathered face. Lily would be asleep by now, her inhaler carefully placed on the nightstand beside her. The latest one had cost him $287 after insurance, another expense he could barely afford. Michael sighed as he organized his tools. The application to Meridian Technologies sat completed on his laptop at home. A Hail Mary, if there ever was one, a former Navy SEAL turned auto mechanic applying for a security systems position at one of the most advanced tech companies in the Pacific Northwest. But with his garage 3 months behind on rent and Lily's medical bills piling up, he needed more than the occasional late-night shift at Pete's could provide. The sudden squeal of tires outside cut through the drumming rain. Michael's head snapped up, muscles tensing from decades of training that had become instinct. Through the rain-streaked windows, he caught the flash of headlights as a luxury sedan careened into the station, parking haphazardly near the front door. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the driver's door burst open, and a woman stumbled out. Even through the downpour, Michael could see she was in rough-shaped designer clothes, torn and muddied, hair disheveled, and a smear of what looked like blood on her temple. She staggered toward the entrance, constantly glancing over her shoulder. Years of combat had taught Michael to recognize fear. This woman wasn't just scared, she was terrified. The bell above the door jingled as she practically fell inside, catching herself against the counter. Up close, Michael could see she was in her late 40s, with the poised bearing of someone accustomed to command. Despite her current state, their eyes met, and Michael saw something unexpected there. Not just fear, but calculation, assessment. "Please," she gasped, her voice carrying the refined tone of education and privilege, now strained with desperation. "They're coming. I need help." Michael moved around the counter in 2 long strides, years of training kicking in. "Who's coming? Are you hurt?" "Not badly," she said, straightening slightly. "But they'll be here any minute. They have guns." Her eyes darted to the windows, scanning the darkness beyond. As if on cue, the gleam of headlights cut through the rain as 2 black SUVs pulled into the station, boxing in the woman's sedan. "Is there another way out?" she asked urgently. Michael's mind raced through the layout of Pete's humble establishment. Back door through the storage room, leads to the alley. He gestured toward the rear of the shop. "You should hide," she said, already moving toward the indicated door. "This isn't your fight." Michael's hand closed gently but firmly around her wrist. "Ma'am, I stopped walking away from fights when I saw what happens to the people left behind." He released her and reached under the counter, pulling out the Louisville Slugger that Pete kept for emergencies. "Get to the storage room," he instructed. Lock the door behind you. She hesitated, searching his face. Why would you help me? You don't even know me. A sad smile touched Michael's lips. Lady, in this world, sometimes all we've got is the kindness of strangers. The front door burst open before she could respond. Two men entered, one tall and lean with a shaved head, the other stockier with a neatly trimmed beard. Both wore dark suits that couldn't quite conceal the bulge of shoulder holsters. They moved with the practiced precision of professionals. Evening, gentlemen, Michael said casually, leaning on the baseball bat. We're about to close up. The taller man smiled, the expression never reaching his eyes. We're not here for gas. The woman who just came in, where is she? Michael shrugged. Don't know what you're talking about. Been a slow night. The stocky one stepped forward, his hand slipping inside his jacket. Don't play dumb, old man. We saw her come in. Old Michael raised an eyebrow. I prefer experienced. The door chimed again as two more men entered, built like linebackers with the hard eyes of enforcers. Last chance, the tall man said. Where is she? Michael sighed dramatically. Look, fellows, I'm just trying to finish my shift and get home to my kid. How about you take whatever personal drama you've got going on somewhere else? The tall man nodded to his companions. Search the place. As one of the linebackers moved toward the storage room door, Michael made his decision. In one fluid motion, he swung the bat, connecting with the stocky man's outstretched arm. There was a satisfying crack bone, not wood, followed by a howl of pain. What followed was a blur of practiced violence. Michael's body remembered what to do even after years away from combat. He drove his elbow into the tall man's throat, ducked under a wild swing from one of the linebackers, and used the bat to sweep the man's legs from under him. The second linebacker pulled a gun, but Michael was already moving, closing the distance. He slammed the man's wrist against the edge of the counter, sending the weapon clattering across the floor. A quick jab to the solar plexus doubled the man over, allowing Michael to bring his knee up into the attacker's face. The tall man had recovered enough to pull his own weapon. Michael grabbed a canister of brake cleaner from the counter and sprayed it directly into the man's eyes. The attacker screamed, firing blindly. The shot went wide, shattering the front window. Michael seized the momentary advantage, delivering a devastating right hook that dropped the tall man to the floor. The stocky one was struggling to his feet, his arm hanging at an unnatural angle. Michael kicked him hard in the ribs, sending him sprawling back to the ground. The fight had lasted less than 30 seconds. Michael surveyed the damage, breathing heavily. Two men unconscious, one with a broken arm clutching his ribs, and one half-blind and moaning on the floor. The front window was shattered, merchandise scattered across the floor, and the smell of gasoline hung in the air from a punctured container. He retrieved the dropped gun and checked the magazine full, with one in the chamber. Professional hardware, not street thugs. Whoever this woman was, she'd attracted serious attention. It's clear, he called toward the storage room, but we need to move. Now! The storage room door opened cautiously, and the woman emerged, her eyes widening at the scene before her. You, she started, then fell silent, reassessing him. Save it, Michael said, moving to the register to grab the emergency cash Pete would understand. More will come. Can you drive? She nodded. Good. He tossed her the keys to his truck parked behind the station. Blue Ford F-150, I need to grab something. Meet me there in 30 seconds. Without waiting for a response, Michael hurried to the fallen men, quickly searching them. He found what he expected: no ID, burner phones, and high-end communications earpieces. He pocketed one of the phones and an earpiece before retrieving his jacket from behind the counter. The woman was already in the driver's seat when he reached the truck, the engine running. Michael slid into the passenger side, the confiscated gun tucked into his waistband. Head north on Highway 26, he instructed. Stay under the speed limit. She pulled out of the station, her hands steady on the wheel despite everything. For several minutes, they drove in silence. the only sound the rhythmic sweep of the wipers against the relentless rain. "They'll track your vehicle," she finally said, her voice calmer now. "I know. We'll switch cars soon." Michael studied her profile. "You want to tell me why 4 professional hitters are after you?" She kept her eyes on the road. "It's complicated." Lady, I just took down 4 armed men for you. I think I've earned a little complicated." She sighed, a sound heavy with exhaustion. "My name is Eleanor Harrington. Does that mean anything to you?" Michael frowned, the name tugging at his memory. Then it clicked. "Meridian Technologies. You're the CEO." Eleanor nodded, her grip tightening on the steering wheel. "Yes, and someone very powerful wants what's in my head." Michael stared at her, the bizarre coincidence sinking in. The woman he'd just saved was the head of the company he was desperately hoping would hire him. Under different circumstances, he might have laughed. "Take the next exit," he said instead. "We need to get somewhere safe, and I need to check on my daughter." 20 minutes later, they pulled into the driveway of a modest house in a middle-class Portland suburb. The rain had slowed to a drizzle, but the night remained dark and forbidding. "Wait here," Michael instructed as he got out of the truck. Eleanor watched him approach the neighboring house, a well-maintained bungalow with warm light glowing from the windows. An elderly woman answered his knock, her face creasing with concern as Michael spoke quietly to her. After a brief conversation, he returned to the truck. "My neighbor, Mrs. Henderson, is watching Lily," he explained as he slid back into the passenger seat. "Pull around to the garage in the back." Once the truck was hidden from street view, Michael led Eleanor to a side entrance. The house was modest but neat-worn furniture arranged with care, family photos on the walls, and small touches that spoke of a home maintained with limited resources but abundant love. "Daddy," a young voice called from a hallway, followed by the appearance of a girl in flannel pajamas, her long brown hair tousled from sleep. She carried an inhaler in one hand, a worn stuffed rabbit in the other. "Hey, Pumpkin!" Michael's voice softened immediately. "What are you doing up?" "I heard the truck," she said, rubbing her eyes before noticing Eleanor. "Oh, hello. Lily, this is Ms. Harrington. She's a colleague who needs our help tonight." Michael placed a gentle hand on his daughter's shoulder. "Why don't you go back to bed? It's late." "Is everything okay?" Lily asked, her eyes so like her father's moving between the adults with preternatural perception. "Everything's fine," Michael assured her. "Just grown-up stuff. Go on now." After Lily reluctantly retreated to her room, Michael turned to Eleanor. "You can use the shower if you want. First door on the left. I'll find you some clothes." Eleanor nodded gratefully. "Thank you. I'm sorry to bring this to your door." "Save it," Michael said, not unkindly. "Get cleaned up. We'll talk after." While Eleanor showered, Michael moved through the house with practiced efficiency. He checked all the doors and windows, drew the blinds, and retrieved a metal case from beneath a floorboard in his bedroom closet. Inside was a Glock 19, a remnant from his service days that he'd never quite been able to part with, and 3 magazines of ammunition. He loaded the weapon and tucked it into a holster at the small of his back before making his way to the kitchen. There, he put on a pot of coffee and placed a secure call to an old teammate, the only one from his SEAL unit he still kept in touch with. "Dave, it's Reeves," he said when the call connected. "I need a favor." By the time Eleanor emerged from the bathroom wearing a faded Portland Trailblazers t-shirt and sweatpants that were too large for her frame, Michael had a mug of coffee waiting and a first aid kit open on the kitchen table. "Sit," he instructed, gesturing to a chair. "Let me look at that cut on your head." Eleanor complied, wincing slightly as Michael cleaned the wound with antiseptic. "It's just a graze," she said. "I've had worse from overzealous board meetings." Michael didn't smile. "Those men weren't sent to negotiate terms." "No," she agreed, her eyes meeting his. "They weren't. So why don't you tell me what this is really about?" Michael asked, applying a butterfly bandage to her temple. And why I shouldn't just call the police right now? Eleanor's gaze dropped to her hands, now cradling the mug of coffee. Because the police can't help, and if I involve them, more people will die. Michael finished with the bandage and sat down across from her. I'm listening. Eleanor took a deep breath. Meridian has been developing a new AI security system, military grade, but with applications beyond warfare. We call it Project Prometheus. And someone wants to steal it. She nodded. It's more than that. The system. It's revolutionary. It can predict patterns of behavior, identify threats before they materialize, adapt to evolving situations in real time. In the right hands, it could save countless lives. And in the wrong hands, it could dismantle any security system, bypass any firewall, predict and counter any defensive measure. Her voice dropped. It could make conventional warfare obsolete while making covert operations nearly undetectable. Michael leaned back in his chair, processing. So who's after it? Foreign government competitor? I thought so at first, Eleanor said, but now I believe it's coming from inside Meridian. Someone high up, with access and resources. You have proof. Not yet, but I was getting close. That's why they came after me tonight. She looked up, her eyes haunted. I was working late when they breached security. My own head of operations, Richard Caldwell, was leading them. I barely got out through an emergency exit. Michael's brow furrowed. Richard Caldwell, I know that name. Eleanor's expression shifted to surprise. You do. He's the one who encouraged me to apply to Meridian. We met at a veterans event last month. Michael stood and retrieved his laptop from a shelf. He said they were looking for security personnel with military background. He opened the computer and pulled up his application, turning the screen toward Eleanor. I was going to interview next week. Eleanor stared at the screen, then at Michael, the pieces falling into place. This can't be coincidence. In my experience, coincidences are just conspiracies we haven't unraveled yet. Michael closed the laptop. What would Caldwell want with an ex-SEAL with mechanical expertise? The Prometheus system requires both digital and physical security protocols, Eleanor said slowly. Someone with your background would be valuable, or dangerous, depending on whose side you're on. Before Michael could respond, headlights swept across the living room window. He was on his feet instantly, the Glock appearing in his hand. Stay here, he ordered, moving silently to the window. He peered carefully around the edge of the blinds, then cursed under his breath. Black SUV, 2 men. Eleanor paled. How did they find us so quickly? Michael's mind raced through possibilities. Your car must have a tracker, or... His eyes narrowed as he turned to her. Your clothes. Check your pockets. Jewelry. Everything. Eleanor patted down the clothes she'd been wearing, then gasped as her fingers found something in the lining of her jacket. She pulled out a small, flat device no larger than a button. Clever bastards, Michael muttered, taking the tracker and crushing it under his boot. But that doesn't explain how they found us so fast. They must have others looking for my truck. Outside, car doors slammed. Michael moved quickly to Lily's room, gently shaking her awake. Pumpkin, we need to go. Right now. Grab your emergency bag like we practiced. Lily was instantly alert, reaching for the backpack that always sat ready by her bed. Is it happening again? Daddy? The question broke Michael's heart. The last emergency had been 2 years ago, when a former teammate with PTSD had shown up at their door, armed and raving about enemies closing in. Just a precaution, sweetheart. Remember the drill? Lily nodded solemnly, slipping on her shoes. Quiet as a mouse. Stay close as a shadow. That's my girl. Michael led Lily to the kitchen where Eleanor waited, tension radiating from her rigid posture. There's a crawl space access in the hall closet, he explained, retrieving a go bag from beneath the sink. It leads to a storm drain that runs behind the properties. We use it. Get to Henson Street, then call Dave. He'll have transportation waiting. Eleanor nodded, but her eyes were fixed on Lily. I'm so sorry, she whispered. Later, Michael said firmly. Move now. Apologize later. They had just reached the hallway when the front door burst open. Michael pushed Lily and Eleanor behind him, raising his weapon in one fluid motion. The first man through the door took a bullet to the shoulder, spinning him back against the frame. The second attacker fired wildly, forcing Michael to duck behind the wall. Plaster exploded next to his head as bullets tore through the drywall. The closet, go! Michael shouted, returning fire to provide cover. Eleanor grabbed Lily's hand and darted for the closet while Michael engaged the attackers. He heard more car doors outside, reinforcements arriving. In the confined space of the hallway, Michael's experience gave him an edge. He knew every corner, every angle of his home. 2 more attackers had entered, using the furniture as cover. Michael fired strategically, not to kill but to wound and delay. These weren't just hired guns, they were someone's employees, following orders. The distinction mattered to him, even now. A flash of movement to his right caught his attention. Another attacker coming through the kitchen. Michael pivoted, but not fast enough. Pain exploded across his ribs as a bullet grazed his side. He staggered but kept his footing, returning fire. The man dropped, clutching his leg. Michael backed toward the closet, maintaining suppressive fire. His magazine emptied, and he smoothly ejected it, slapping in a fresh one from his pocket. Years of training made the motion as natural as breathing. He reached the closet to find Eleanor struggling with the access panel. It's stuck, she gasped. Michael holstered his weapon and pushed her gently aside. With a sharp tug, the panel came free, revealing a dark passage beyond. Lily first, he instructed. His daughter climbed in without hesitation, her small form disappearing into the darkness. Eleanor followed, her movements surprisingly agile for someone unaccustomed to such escapes. Michael took one last look down the hallway. The attackers were regrouping, coordinating their approach. He pulled a flashbang grenade from his go bag, another relic from his service days, and tossed it into the living room before climbing into the crawl space and pulling the panel shut behind him. The confined passage smelled of damp earth and concrete. Michael led the way, guided by the small flashlight from his keychain. Behind him, Lily's breathing was labored but controlled. She was using the techniques they'd practiced to manage her asthma during physical exertion. You okay, Pumpkin? He whispered. I'm okay, Daddy, came the brave reply. Eleanor said nothing, but Michael could sense her guilt and fear in the darkness. They crawled for what seemed like eternity before reaching the storm drain, a wider passage that allowed them to move in a crouch rather than on hands and knees. Finally, they emerged through a maintenance access into an alley 2 blocks from Michael's house. In the distance, sirens wailed. Neighbors must have reported the gunfire. Michael pulled out the burner phone he'd taken from one of the attackers at the gas station and dialed Dave's number. We're at extraction point B, he said simply when his friend answered. 3 minutes, Dave replied before hanging up. Michael turned to Eleanor and Lily, both disheveled and shaken. Our ride will be here soon. How's your breathing? Pumpkin. Lily nodded, clutching her inhaler. It's okay. Just a little tight. Eleanor knelt beside the girl, her executive demeanor giving way to genuine concern. I have asthma too, she said softly. Since I was about your age, does counting breaths help you? Lily's eyes widened with interest. Sometimes I count to 4 in, hold for 7, out for 8. That's exactly what I do. Eleanor smiled. You're very brave. You know. Daddy taught me, Lily said proudly. He says being brave isn't about not being scared. It's about doing what needs doing, even when you are scared. Eleanor's gaze lifted to Michael, something unreadable in her expression. Your father is a wise man. A battered van turned into the alley, its headlights flashing once. Michael recognized Dave's signal and ushered Lily and Eleanor forward. The side door slid open to reveal Dave Peterson, 55, built like a retired linebacker, with salt and pepper hair cropped close to his scalp. You look like hell. Reeves, Dave said by way of greeting. Good to see you too. Chief, Michael replied, helping Lily into the van before turning to Eleanor. Eleanor Harrington, meet Dave Peterson, best sniper in Naval Special Warfare Group and the only man I'd trust with my life. Dave's eyebrows shot up as he recognized the name. Ma'am, he nodded respectfully. Didn't realize we were providing executive transport services now. It's a long story, Michael said, climbing in after Eleanor. We need to get somewhere safe. Off the grid. Dave put the van in gear. I've got just the place, about 2 hours north, in the Olympic Peninsula. Buddy of mine has a hunting cabin. No one will find you there. As they drove away from the city lights, Eleanor finally broke her silence. Your daughter, she said quietly to Michael. This isn't the first time she's had to run, is it? Michael's jaw tightened as he gazed at Lily, now sleeping fitfully against Dave's rolled-up jacket. No, he admitted. After her mother died, there was an incident. A man I served with had a breakdown, came looking for me, thought I was part of some conspiracy against him. I'm sorry, and Eleanor said. I never meant to bring this kind of danger to your door. Michael's eyes, hard as flint, met hers. The difference is, this time I'm choosing it. But make no mistake, Ms. Harrington, once my daughter is safe, whoever is hunting you is going to wish they'd never heard my name. The cabin sat nestled among towering pines, its weathered exterior blending with the surrounding forest. Inside, it was Spartan but clean 2 bedrooms, a main living area with a wood stove, and a kitchen stocked with basic provisions. No electricity, but propane lamps and a generator provided light and heat. Dave had left them with supplies, a satellite phone, and the promise to return in 2 days with news and additional resources. Michael had sent Lily to bed immediately, her exhaustion evident in the droop of her shoulders and the pallor of her face. Now, with his daughter safely asleep, Michael sat at the rough-hewn table cleaning his Glock by the warm light of a propane lamp. Across from him, Eleanor nursed a cup of instant coffee, her elegant features incongruous against the rustic backdrop. You have questions, she said, breaking the silence. Michael continued his methodical work, not looking up. Several, starting with why Richard Caldwell wants Project Prometheus badly enough to send hit squads after his own CEO. Eleanor sighed, her fingers tracing the rim of her cup. Richard was my partner in developing Prometheus, not just professionally. We were engaged, briefly, about 3 years ago. That made Michael look up, his hands pausing their work. It ended badly, Eleanor continued. He wanted to sell the technology to the highest bidder. I insisted it be developed under strict ethical guidelines with government oversight. Let me guess that wasn't as profitable. No, she admitted, but I couldn't live with the alternative. The system's predictive capabilities, in the wrong hands. It could be weaponized in ways we never intended. Michael resumed cleaning his weapon. So he's been planning this takeover for years. I believe so. Gradually positioning loyal people in key departments, establishing back channels with potential buyers. Eleanor's voice hardened. I started noticing discrepancies in the security protocols. Small things at first, but they added up. When I began investigating, strange accidents started happening. And tonight I found proof. Financial transfers through shell companies. Communications with a private military contractor based in Eastern Europe. Eleanor pulled a small data drive from her pocket. It's all here. Enough to destroy him, if I can get it to the right people. Michael eyed the drive. And that's why they're hunting you so aggressively. They don't just want to silence you, they need that evidence. Eleanor nodded. Richard knows I'll go to the authorities. He can't allow that. So why come after me? Michael asked, the question that had been bothering him since the gas station. What's my role in all this? Eleanor hesitated, something like guilt flashing across her face. Your background checks all the boxes for someone who could help infiltrate the physical security measures protecting Prometheus. Navy SEAL training, mechanical expertise, combat experience. You're exactly the type Richard would want to recruit. For what, breaking into Meridian? No, Eleanor said quietly. For eliminating me. The pieces clicked into place. He was going to offer me a job as your killer, Michael said flatly. Clean, untraceable. A desperate father with financial problems suddenly gets a chance at a better life. I believe so, Eleanor confirmed. Your application caught my attention precisely because it was so perfect. Too perfect. When I started digging, I found connections between Richard and the veterans event where you met. Michael assembled his weapon with quick, practiced movements, the metal components sliding together with satisfying clicks. He played me. He played us both, Eleanor corrected. He didn't count on us meeting like this, or on you being the kind of man who would help a stranger in danger. Michael holstered the Glock and leaned back in his chair, studying Eleanor with new eyes. There's still something you're not telling me. Eleanor met his gaze steadily. What makes you say that 20 years of reading people in life or death situations? Michael replied. What is it? She looked away, her composure cracking slightly. Your wife, she said softly. Audrey Reeves. She worked for Meridian before her illness. Didn't she? Michael went very still. How do you know my wife's name? Because I knew her, Eleanor said, her voice barely above a whisper. She was a brilliant biochemist, one of the best minds on our medical research team. The revelation hit Michael like a physical blow. That's impossible. Audrey worked for Portland Medical Research. She never mentioned Meridian. Portland Medical Research is a shell company, a front for Meridian's classified biotech division. Eleanor explained gently. Your wife was developing medical applications for the same AI framework that would later become Prometheus. Applications that could revolutionize disease prediction and treatment. Michael stood abruptly, his chair scraping across the wooden floor. No, Audrey would have told me. She couldn't, Eleanor said. The work was classified. Government contracts, NDAs that would have resulted in federal charges if broken. She paused, watching him carefully. But she left the project suddenly, about 6 months before her diagnosis. Do you remember why? Michael paced the small room, memories flooding back. She said she needed a change, that the hours were too long, that she wanted more time with Lily. He stopped, turning back to Eleanor. Are you saying her work was connected to her illness? I don't know, Eleanor admitted. But the timing always troubled me. And after she left, Richard took over the medical research division. The project was shuttered soon after. Michael's mind raced through implications, each more disturbing than the last. Why are you telling me this now? Eleanor stood, approaching him cautiously. Because you deserve to know what you're really fighting for. And because I think Audrey's research might be the key to understanding why Prometheus is so valuable to Richard and his buyers. What do you mean? The core of Prometheus isn't just predictive security, it's predictive adaptation. Eleanor explained. The same algorithms that allow it to anticipate security threats could be applied to predict disease progression, treatment responses, or even to engineer targeted biological agents. The full weight of her words settled over Michael. Weapons. Eleanor nodded grimly. Weapons that could target specific genetic markers, that could evolve to overcome countermeasures, that could be deployed invisibly and deniably. And you developed this, Michael's voice carried an edge of accusation. No, Eleanor said firmly. I shut down that avenue of research the moment I understood its potential for weaponization. It's why Richard and I split, personally and professionally. He saw billions in potential contracts. I saw the end of ethical warfare. Michael turned away, struggling to process everything. His wife's secret work, the connection to Meridian, the possibility that her illness wasn't just cruel fate, but something more sinister. It was too much to absorb at once. Get some rest, he finally said. Tomorrow we need to figure out our next move. Eleanor nodded, understanding his need for space. Michael, she said as she turned toward the second bedroom. For what it's worth, Audrey was proud of her work. She believed it would help people, Save lives. That's the part of Prometheus worth fighting for. After she left, Michael sat alone in the main room, the propane lamp casting long shadows across the walls. Outside, the wind whispered through the pines, a sound so different from the urban noise he'd grown accustomed to. In the quiet, memories of Audrey flooded back her laugh, her passion for her work, the way she'd speak excitedly about breakthroughs he only half understood. Had she known? Had she discovered something that made her walk away from her research, and had that decision ultimately cost her her life? Michael moved to the window, gazing out at the star-filled sky. Whatever the truth, one thing was certain: Richard Caldwell had connections to both Audrey's past and Lily's future, and that made this fight deeply, irrevocably personal. Morning broke over the Olympic Peninsula in a symphony of birdsong and dappled sunlight filtering through the pines. Michael had slept little, his mind too full of questions and plans. He'd spent the pre-dawn hours checking the perimeter, cleaning weapons, and taking inventory of their supplies. He was frying eggs on the propane stove when Lily emerged from her room, rubbing sleep from her eyes. Despite everything, the sight of his daughter, resilient, brave, so much like her mother, brought a genuine smile to his face. "Morning, Pumpkin. Sleep okay?" Lily nodded, climbing onto a stool at the counter. "The bed smells funny, like mothballs and pine." Michael chuckled, sliding a plate of eggs in front of her. "That's the authentic wilderness experience." "Where's Ms. Harrington?" Lily asked, picking up her fork. "Still sleeping," Michael replied. It was a long night for everyone. Lily took a bite of eggs, studying her father with those perceptive eyes that always seemed to see more than he wanted them to. "Is she in trouble? Daddy, like Uncle Dave, was..." Michael considered how to answer. He'd never believed in sheltering Lily from reality, not after she'd lost her mother, not after the incident with his former teammate. She'd seen too much to be protected by comforting lies. "Yes," he said finally, "she's in trouble. Some bad people want something she has, and they're willing to hurt her to get it. And that's why they came to our house." "Yes." Lily nodded solemnly, processing this. "Is that why you helped her? Because she needed help like Uncle Dave did?" Michael sat beside his daughter, placing a gentle hand on her shoulder. "Partly, but also because it's the right thing to do. Your mom always said that the measure of a person isn't what they do when it's easy, but what they do when it's hard." "I miss Mom," Lily said quietly. "Me too, Pumpkin." Every day, the sound of a door opening interrupted the moment. Eleanor appeared, dressed in the borrowed clothes from the night before, her hair damp from washing in the basin. "Good morning," she said, her voice carrying the careful politeness of someone aware they were intruding. "Ms. Harrington." Lily brightened. "Daddy made eggs. They're only a little burned on the bottom." Michael raised an eyebrow at his daughter. Culinary criticism from someone who thinks cereal is a food group. Eleanor smiled, the expression softening the weariness in her eyes. "Eggs sound wonderful, burned or not." As they ate breakfast, Michael observed the easy way Eleanor engaged with Lily, asking about her school, her interests, listening with genuine attention to the girl's enthusiastic explanations of her science project on renewable energy. There was nothing condescending in Eleanor's manner. She spoke to Lily as she might to a colleague, with respect and interest. "So you're a scientist too?" Lily asked, her eyes wide. "Computer science and systems engineering." Eleanor nodded. "But I started with an interest in biology, like your mom." Michael tensed slightly at the mention of Audrey, but Lily leaned forward eagerly. "Did you know my mom? Daddy said she was the smartest person he ever met." Eleanor's eyes flicked to Michael before returning to Lily. "I did know her. And your father's right, she was brilliant. She was working on ways to help people with illnesses like asthma." "Like me?" Lily asked. "Exactly like you," Eleanor confirmed. "She wanted to create medicines that would work better, with fewer side effects." Michael stood abruptly, carrying his plate to the sink. "Lily, Why don't you go get dressed? We need to check in with Uncle Dave soon. When Lily had disappeared into her room, Eleanor approached Michael at the sink. I'm sorry, she said quietly. I didn't mean to overstep. It's fine, Michael replied, his tone making it clear it wasn't. But we need to focus on our immediate situation. Dave will be calling soon with news, and we need a plan. Eleanor nodded, accepting the change of subject. You're right. What are our options? Michael dried his hands on a dish towel, his tactical mind taking over. Depends on the news. If Richard doesn't know you have the evidence, we might have room to maneuver. If he does, he'll be throwing everything he has at finding us. The data is encrypted, Eleanor said. Even if he suspects I have something, he can't be certain what it is or who I might have shared it with. That uncertainty works in our favor, Michael agreed. Our best move might be to get the evidence to the authorities' FBI, not local police. This crosses state lines and involves potential national security issues. Eleanor shook her head. Richard has connections in the Bureau. We need to be careful about who we trust. The satellite phone rang before Michael could respond. He answered on the second ring. Go ahead. It's worse than we thought. Dave's voice crackled through the speaker. Your place is crawling with local PD. Word is you're wanted for questioning in connection with a home invasion and shooting. Michael's jaw tightened. Richard's covering his tracks. That's not all, Dave continued. There's an APB out for your truck. And get this, the official story is that you kidnapped Eleanor Harrington after assaulting her security detail. Eleanor's eyes widened. He's framing you. Makes sense, Michael said grimly. Easier to hunt us if he has law enforcement doing the legwork. He turned his attention back to the phone. What about Meridian, any unusual activity? Place is locked down tight, Dave reported. Official statement says they're conducting a security review following an attempted breach. Caldwell is acting as interim CEO in Harrington's absence. He's moving fast, Eleanor murmured. Consolidating control. What about your contacts? Michael asked Dave. Anyone who can help us get to the FBI without going through official channels? There was a pause on the line. Maybe. I've got a buddy who works with a task force on corporate espionage. Straight arrow. No connections to Meridian that I know of, but it'll take time to arrange a secure meeting. How much time? At least 48 hours. He's in D.C. right now. Michael considered their options. All right, we'll stay put for now, but we need transportation, something untraceable. Already on it, Dave assured him. I'll have a vehicle for you by tonight. Clean papers, too. Good man, Michael said. Anything else we should know? Dave hesitated. Yeah, been doing some digging on Caldwell. Guy's got connections to some serious players, private military contractors, foreign investors with questionable backgrounds. Whatever he's planning, it's big. Keep digging, Michael instructed. And Dave, watch your back. If they connected me to you, don't worry about me, Dave said. Just keep that little girl safe. I'll be in touch. After ending the call, Michael turned to Eleanor, who had been listening intently. We've got a problem. I gathered that, she said dryly. Richard is moving faster than I anticipated, which means we need to move faster, Michael replied. The evidence you have, can it be accessed remotely, sent to trusted sources as insurance? Eleanor shook her head. Not from here. It requires specialized decryption, and I don't want to risk sending it electronically. Richard has too much surveillance capability. Michael paced the small room, thinking. Then we need leverage, something to keep him in check until we can get the evidence to the right people. What kind of leverage? The kind that speaks to men like Richard, Michael said grimly. Fear. Eleanor studied him, a new understanding dawning in her eyes. You want to go after him directly? Not yet, Michael cautioned. First, when we need to secure Lily somewhere safe. Then we need more information, the layout of Meridian, security protocols, Richard's movements. I can provide all of that, Eleanor said, but getting into Meridian won't be easy. The security system is state-of-the-art biometric access. AI-monitored surveillance? Armed guards? A slow, dangerous smile spread across Michael's face. Good thing they were planning to hire me as a security consultant. Then, before Eleanor could respond, a sound outside froze them both, the distinct crunch of tires on gravel. Michael moved to the window, peering carefully around the edge of the curtain. Black SUV, he reported, his voice dropping to a whisper. 2 men, maybe more inside. That's impossible, Eleanor breathed. How could they find us here? Michael's mind raced through possibilities, then settled on the most likely. The satellite phone. It's not secure they could have tracked the signal. He moved quickly to the bedroom where Lily was dressing. Pumpkin, we need to go. Right now. Lily, recognizing the urgency in her father's voice, didn't question. She grabbed her backpack and inhaler. The bad men found us. Yeah, Michael said, already moving to retrieve his go bag and weapon. Remember what I taught you about the woods? Lily nodded solemnly. Stay low. Move quiet. Find water. That's right. We're going out the back window. In the main room, Eleanor was gathering their limited supplies into a pack. There's a hiking trail about half a mile east, she said. I saw it on a map by the door. Michael nodded approvingly. Good eye. It'll give us cover in a path north toward the highway. He checked his weapon and handed Eleanor the satellite phone. Smash this once we're clear. It's how they found us. Outside, car doors slammed. Michael guided Lily and Eleanor to the back bedroom, where a small window offered access to the forest beyond. He helped Lily through first, then Eleanor, before slipping out himself just as the front door of the cabin burst open. They crouched beneath the window, listening to the heavy footsteps inside. Michael motioned for them to move, keeping low among the underbrush. They had only seconds before their escape would be discovered. The dense forest offered cover but made progress slow. Michael led the way, choosing their path carefully, mindful of Lily's shorter stride and the need to minimize signs of their passage. Eleanor followed closely, her borrowed hiking boots sliding occasionally on the damp ground. They had covered perhaps a quarter mile when shouts erupted behind them. Their absence had been discovered. Run, Michael urged, no longer concerned with stealth. Toward the stream. They raced through the trees, branches whipping at their faces. Lily stumbled once, but Michael scooped her up without breaking stride, carrying her as they fled. The sound of pursuit grew louder, crashing through undergrowth. Men calling to each other as they spread out to search. The stream appeared ahead, a ribbon of silver cutting through the forest. Michael placed Lily down at the water's edge. Wade in, he instructed. The water will hide our scent and tracks. They splashed into the cold stream, gasping at the temperature. The water was swift but shallow, reaching only to Lily's waist at its deepest. They moved with the current, using it to speed their escape while masking their trail. After several hundred yards, Michael guided them back to the bank on the opposite side. The sounds of pursuit had faded, but he knew it was only temporary. Their hunters would soon discover the stream and follow its course. The hiking trail should be just ahead, Eleanor said, her breath coming in short gasps. If we can reach it, we might find other hikers, or a ranger station. Michael nodded, helping Lily up the slippery bank. His daughter's face was pale, her breathing labored from the exertion and cold. How's your chest, Pumpkin? Tight, Lily admitted, reaching for her inhaler. Michael's heart constricted as he watched her take a puff of the medication. Each time he saw her struggle to breathe, he was reminded of his helplessness against her condition, a former SEAL who could handle armed pursuers, but couldn't fight the inflammation in his daughter's lungs. We'll rest soon, he promised. Just a little farther. They pushed on through the forest, the ground gradually sloping upward. The hiking trail, when they reached it, was mercifully empty of other travelers, both a blessing and a curse. No witnesses meant no one to report their pursuers, but also no help if they were cornered. Michael set a brisk pace, constantly scanning their surroundings and listening for signs of pursuit. The trail wound through the forest before emerging onto a ridge that offered a panoramic view of the valley below. In the distance, the glint of a road caught Michael's eye. There, he pointed. That's our best bet. If we can reach the highway, we might be able to flag down help or find transportation. They had just started down the trail toward the road when the distinctive crack of a rifle shot split the air. Bark exploded from a tree just inches from Eleanor's head. "Down!" Michael shouted, pulling Lily to the ground as another shot rang out. They crawled behind a fallen log, bullets spitting dirt and wood splinters around them. Michael drew his Glock, cursing the inadequacy of a handgun against a rifle at this range. "They're on the opposite ridge," and he said, peering carefully over the log. "2 shooters, maybe more." "Hey, can we go back?" Eleanor asked, her arm protectively around Lily. Michael shook his head. "They'll have people on the trail behind us by now." He studied the terrain, calculating angles and distances. "There's a ravine about 50 yards ahead. If we can reach it, the slope will provide cover all the way to the tree line below." Another volley of shots peppered their position. Lily whimpered, her hands covering her ears. "I'll draw their fire," Michael decided. "When I start shooting, you two make for the ravine. Don't stop. Don't look back." Eleanor's eyes widened. "They'll kill you." "They'll try," Michael corrected grimly. "I'll be right behind you." Before she could protest further, Michael moved to the edge of the log. "Ready, go on my mark." He took a deep breath, then raised up and fired 3 rapid shots toward the distant ridge. "Now go!" Eleanor grabbed Lily's hand, and they sprinted toward the ravine as Michael continued firing, forcing the snipers to take cover. The distance to safety seemed to stretch endlessly, each step in slow motion as bullets kicked up dirt around them. Michael waited until they had almost reached the ravine before making his own dash. He was halfway to cover when a searing pain tore through his left arm. The impact spun him, but he kept his footing, diving the last few yards into the ravine just as more bullets chewed the ground where he had been. "Daddy!" Lily cried, seeing the blood soaking his sleeve. "It's okay," Michael assured her, though the wound burned like fire. "Just a graze." Eleanor was already tearing a strip from her shirt to use as a bandage. "Hold still," she ordered, her executive authority emerging even in crisis. She wrapped the makeshift bandage tightly around his bicep, stemming the flow of blood. "Thanks," Michael said, checking his weapon. "We need to keep moving. They'll be coming down to flush us out." They followed the ravine downhill, its steep sides providing cover from the shooters above. The descent was treacherous loose rocks, and exposed roots threatened to send them tumbling with each step. Lily moved with surprising sure-footedness, while Eleanor struggled on the uneven terrain, her city life evident in her uncertain footing. The ravine gradually widened, eventually opening onto a broader valley. The highway was visible now, perhaps a mile away across open ground. "We'll be exposed," Eleanor noted, gazing at the meadow that separated them from the road. "Can't be helped," Michael replied, wincing as he adjusted the bandage on his arm. "We'll stick to the tree line as long as possible, then make a sprint for it." They moved cautiously along the edge of the forest, using the trees for cover while keeping the highway in sight. The sun had begun its westward descent, casting long shadows across the landscape. In a few hours, darkness would provide additional cover, but Michael was unwilling to wait. Lily's breathing had grown more labored, and his own wound, while not life-threatening, was sapping his strength. They had covered about half the distance to the highway when the roar of engines drew their attention. 2 ATVs were speeding along the forest edge, cutting off their route to the road. "They're hurting us," Michael realized, "driving us back toward the forest where they have the advantage." "What do we do?" Eleanor asked, her composure finally showing cracks. Michael surveyed their options. The ATVs were positioning to cut off any approach to the highway. Behind them, movement in the forest suggested pursuers on foot. They were being surrounded, methodically and professionally. His mind raced through tactical options, each less promising than the last. They were outgunned, outnumbered, and Lily's condition was deteriorating. For the first time since this nightmare began, Michael felt the cold grip of genuine fear. Then, in the distance, a new sound emerged, the rhythmic thump of helicopter rotors. "Get down," Michael ordered, pulling Lily and Eleanor into the tall grass. The helicopter appeared over the ridge, a sleek black craft with no identifying markings. It circled once, then descended toward a clearing about a quarter-mile away. "Richard," Eleanor breathed. "He's coming himself." Michael watched as the helicopter touched down. The significance wasn't lost on him. If Caldwell was here personally, it meant they were out of time. Whatever was on that data drive, it was worth Caldwell abandoning the protection of plausible deniability. "Change of plan," Michael said, his voice hardening with resolve. "We're not running anymore." Eleanor stared at him in disbelief. "What are you talking about?" "They have us surrounded." "Exactly," Michael replied. "Which means Richard is confident he has us trapped. He's expecting us to keep running, to be desperate." A dangerous smile spread across his face. "So we're going to do the one thing he's not expecting, which is, we're going to take the fight to him." Richard Caldwell stepped from the helicopter, his tailored suit incongruous against the wilderness backdrop. A tall man with silver-threaded dark hair and the lean physique of someone who worked out regularly, but not excessively. He carried himself with the confidence of power and privilege. The team leader approached, giving a perfunctory nod. "Subjects are contained, sir. We have them trapped between our ground units and the ATV patrols." "Excellent," Caldwell replied, his cultured voice carrying just a hint of southern drawl. "I want Harrington alive and unharmed. The man and child are expendable." "Sir," the leader acknowledged, "preliminary reports suggest the man is ex-military. Special forces, possibly." Caldwell's expression hardened. "I'm aware of Mr. Reeves's background. That's why I brought additional resources." He gestured to the helicopter, where 4 men in tactical gear were unloading equipment. "These gentlemen are former Delta Force. They should be more than capable of handling one washed-up SEAL." "Yeah, sir." Caldwell checked his watch, a Swiss timepiece worth more than most people earned in a year. "I have a conference call in 3 hours. I expect this situation resolved by then." "Understood, sir." As the team leader departed to coordinate the operation, Caldwell moved to a portable command post being established near the helicopter. Monitors displayed thermal imaging of the surrounding area, with 3 heat signatures clearly visible in the tall grass near the tree line. "Sitting ducks," Caldwell murmured with satisfaction. Across the meadow, hidden in the tall grass, Michael observed the deployment through the compact binoculars from his go bag. The arrival of the additional tactical team complicated matters, but also confirmed his suspicions. Richard Caldwell wasn't taking any chances. 4 new hostiles, he reported quietly to Eleanor. "Professional equipment, military bearing, probably contractors." Eleanor's face was grim. "Richard doesn't hire second-rate talent." "Neither do I," Michael replied, reaching for the satellite phone. Despite his earlier instruction to destroy it, he had recognized its potential value. "Time to call in our own reinforcements." He dialed Dave's number, keeping his voice low. "Eagle's Nest is compromised. Requesting immediate intervention at my coordinates." "Copy that," Dave replied without hesitation. "Cavalry's already rolling. ETA 20 minutes. "Make it 15, Michael said. "We've got a Tier 1 situation." "Understood. Coming in hot." Michael ended the call and turned to Eleanor and Lily. "Help is on the way, but we need to buy time." He handed Lily the phone. "Pumpkin, I need you to be very brave. Take this and hide in those rocks over there. If anything happens to me and Ms. Harrington, press this button and tell Uncle Dave exactly where you are." Lily's eyes filled with tears, but she nodded solemnly. "Are you going to fight the bad men?" "I'm going to keep them busy," Michael corrected, smoothing her hair. "You just stay hidden, no matter what you hear. Promise. I promise, Daddy." After Lily was safely concealed among the rocks, Michael turned to Eleanor. "I need you to create a distraction, something to draw their attention away from the helicopter." Eleanor's brow furrowed. What are you planning? Richard came here personally because he wants that data drive, Michael explained. He's not leaving without it. That makes him vulnerable. Understanding dawned in Eleanor's eyes. You're going after him directly. Michael nodded. While his forces are occupied with you. That's suicide, Eleanor protested. Those men by the helicopter are elite operators. So was I, Michael replied simply. And unlike them, I'm fighting for something worth dying for. Eleanor studied him for a long moment, then nodded. What kind of distraction? Michael indicated a fuel canister near one of the parked ATVs. How are you with fire? 5 minutes later, Eleanor was in position near the abandoned ATVs. Michael had circled wide, using the terrain and fading daylight to approach the helicopter from the blind side. He moved with the fluid grace of a predator, each step placed with deliberate care, his breathing controlled despite the pain in his arm. The command post was a hive of activity, operators coordinating the search while Caldwell paced impatiently nearby. Through his binoculars, Michael could see the thermal imaging displaying their previous position now empty, though the operators hadn't yet realized the signatures had gone cold. The moment arrived when Eleanor struck the first match. The small flame arced through the air, landing near the fuel canister. The resulting explosion was more spectacular than Michael had anticipated. Eleanor must have found additional combustibles to add to the mix. The ATV erupted in a fireball, followed quickly by its companion. The effect was immediate. Operators sprinted toward the conflagration, communications erupting with urgent reports. Caldwell himself stepped away from the command post, shouting orders as the fire illuminated the darkening sky. Michael seized the opportunity, covering the remaining distance to the helicopter in a crouched run. The pilot had remained with the craft, but his attention was fixed on the distant fire. Michael approached from behind, using the helicopter's body as cover. One sharp blow to the base of the skull, and the pilot slumped unconscious. Michael dragged him clear of the craft before turning his attention to the command post. Now guarded by a single operator, more focused on the fire than his immediate surroundings. Moving silently, Michael closed the distance. The operator sensed movement too late, turning just as Michael's fist connected with his throat. A follow-up strike to the temple dropped the man without a sound. Now at the command post, Michael could see the display's clearly thermal imaging, showing the convergence of operators on the fire, digital maps of the area, and most importantly, a secure satellite uplink connecting to Meridian servers. He worked quickly, using the operator's credentials to access the system. His time as a SEAL had included extensive training in electronic warfare and communication skills that had only sharpened during his years keeping pace with Lily's computer education. The Meridian security network opened before him, revealing a treasure trove of information. Michael downloaded everything he could access: security protocols, personnel files, and most critically, Richard's private communications. As the download completed, Michael caught movement in his peripheral vision. He turned to find Richard Caldwell himself standing at the entrance to the command post, a sleek pistol aimed steadily at Michael's chest. "Mr. Reeves," Caldwell said, his tone conversational. "I must say, you've exceeded expectations. I had you pegged as muscle, not strategy." Michael straightened slowly, careful to keep his hands visible. "Richard, I'd say it's a pleasure, but we both know that would be a lie." Caldwell smiled thinly. "Indeed, though I am curious, how does a man with your background end up playing knight-errant for Eleanor Harrington? She's hardly the damsel in distress type." "Let's just say we found common ground," Michael replied, his eyes never leaving the weapon in Caldwell's hand. "A mutual dislike for corporate vultures who betray their country for profit." The smile vanished from Caldwell's face. "Spare me the patriotic posturing. Men like you serve and are discarded, left to scrape by on a mechanic's salary while raising a sickly child alone." He gestured with the pistol. "I offered you a path out of that life, a chance at something better. By making me an assassin, by recognizing your value," Caldwell corrected. "Skills like yours shouldn't be wasted changing oil and fixing mufflers." Michael's jaw tightened. Is that what you told yourself when you had my wife killed, that her skills were being wasted? For the first time, Caldwell's composure slipped. Excuse me, Audrey Reeves, Michael said, the name like a weapon in his mouth. Biochemist at your Portland Medical Research Front. She discovered what you were really doing with Prometheus. Didn't she? The weaponization applications? The targeted pathogens? Caldwell's expression shifted from surprise to calculation. Ah, Eleanor's been sharing stories. How touching. He adjusted his grip on the pistol. Your wife's death was unfortunate, but necessary. She was going to expose the program's true potential before it was ready. So you gave her cancer, Michael said flatly. A targeted pathogen designed to evade detection. A test case. A proof of concept, Caldwell corrected, seemingly relieved to speak openly. Elegant, really. A brilliant mind struck down by the very disease she was researching. No one questioned it. Rage boiled through Michael's veins, but he kept his expression neutral. And now you're selling the technology. To whom? North Korea, Iran, private military contractors. To the highest bidder, Caldwell replied with a shrug. The free market at work. Why limit such revolutionary technology to one government when it can benefit from multiple revenue streams? Benefit you? You mean? Semantics, Caldwell gestured with the pistol. Now, where is the data drive Eleanor took? Give it to me, and I might consider letting your daughter live. The mention of Lily sent a cold wave of fury through Michael. You're not touching my daughter. Don't be dramatic, Caldwell sighed. I'm a businessman, not a monster. The child means nothing to me. She's leverage. Nothing more. That's where you're wrong, Michael said, his voice dropping to a dangerous register. She's everything to me, and that's why you've already lost. Confusion flickered across Caldwell's face. What are you talking about? While we've been having this lovely chat, everything you've done, the bribes, the foreign contacts, the illegal weapons research has been uploading to the FBI, Homeland Security, and every major news outlet in the country. Michael nodded toward the satellite uplink, still connected and transmitting. Eleanor's evidence, plus everything I just pulled from your servers. It's all out there now. Caldwell's face drained of color as he glanced at the displays, confirming Michael's claim. You're bluffing. Am I? Michael took a deliberate step forward. You're finished, Richard. The only question is whether you leave here in handcuffs or a body bag. Caldwell's eyes hardened as he steadied the pistol. If I'm going down, you're coming with me. The gunshot was deafening in the confined space of the command post. Michael felt the bullet pass inches from his head as he lunged forward, driving his shoulder into Caldwell's midsection. They crashed through the entrance, tumbling onto the ground outside. The pistol went flying as they grappled, Caldwell fighting with the desperate strength of a cornered animal. Despite his executive appearance, he was surprisingly strong, landing a solid blow to Michael's wounded arm that sent white-hot pain lancing through his body. Michael retaliated with an elbow strike to Caldwell's jaw, following with a punishing series of blows that drove the man back. But Caldwell was no amateur. He countered with a kick to Michael's knee that nearly buckled the joint, then scrambled for the fallen pistol. Michael tackled him before he could reach the weapon, both men rolling across the ground in a brutal contest of strength and will. Caldwell fought dirty, gouging at Michael's eyes and driving a knee into his wounded arm. Michael responded in kind, years of combat training taking over as he methodically wore down his opponent. A final, devastating strike to Caldwell's sternum left the man gasping on the ground. All pretense of refinement gone. Michael stood over him, his own breathing ragged, blood seeping through the bandage on his arm. It's over, Richard, he said, retrieving the pistol. Your operators are occupied with Eleanor's distraction. Your helicopter pilot is unconscious, and the authorities are on their way. You've got nowhere to go. Caldwell glared up at him, hatred burning in his eyes. You think this ends with me? There are others, powerful people who want this technology. They'll come for her, for the research. You can't protect her forever. Maybe not, Michael acknowledged, but I can damn sure start with you. The sound of approaching vehicles drew Michael's attention. Headlights appeared on the access road, not the expected tactical teams, but a convoy of SUVs with government plates. As they drew closer, Michael could see the distinctive insignia of the FBI. Right on time, he murmured. Caldwell's expression shifted from defiance to calculation. I have friends in the bureau. This isn't over. Those friends are probably being arrested as we speak, Michael replied. The evidence Eleanor gathered implicates dozens of officials. Your network is being dismantled as we talk. As the FBI vehicles surrounded the area, Michael kept his weapon trained on Caldwell. The first agents to approach moved with the caution of professionals facing an uncertain situation. Federal agents. One called, "Drop your weapon." Michael carefully placed the pistol on the ground, raising his hands. Michael Reeves, he identified himself. The man on the ground is Richard Caldwell, wanted for corporate espionage, conspiracy to commit murder, and treason. The lead agent approached, her expression shifting from suspicion to recognition. Mr. Reeves, we got a call from David Peterson. Said you might need some assistance. Michael smiled wearily. Dave always did have impeccable timing. As the agent secured Caldwell, Michael's thoughts turned to Lily and Eleanor. He scanned the area, relief washing over him as he spotted them emerging from the tree line, escorted by additional agents. Lily broke into a run when she saw him, launching herself into his arms despite his injuries. Daddy, you're okay. Michael held his daughter close, the familiar weight of her in his arms centering him in a world that had been turned upside down. I'm okay. Pumpkin. We're all okay now. Eleanor approached more slowly, her expression a complex mixture of relief, exhaustion, and something harder to define, perhaps respect. Perhaps something more. You did it, she said simply. Michael shook his head. We did it. Your evidence. My distraction. A formidable team, Eleanor agreed, her gaze holding his for a moment longer than necessary. As the FBI agents began processing the scene, taking statements and securing prisoners, Michael found himself standing with Eleanor and Lily at the edge of the clearing. The stars had emerged fully now, painting the sky with their ancient light. What happens now? Michael asked quietly. Eleanor looked toward the agents leading Caldwell to a vehicle. Trials, testimony, rebuilding Meridian's reputation and purpose. She turned back to Michael, her expression softening. And fulfilling promises to complete what Audrey started. Eleanor explained, the medical applications of Prometheus, they're real. Michael, they could help people with conditions like Lily's. Your wife's research laid the groundwork for treatments that could change lives. Lily, who had been listening intently, looked up at her father. Mom was working on medicine for asthma. Michael nodded, his throat tight with emotion. Apparently so. Pumpkin. Then we have to help Ms. Harrington finish it, Lily declared with the simple certainty of childhood. Mom would want that. Eleanor smiled, her eyes glistening in the starlight. Your daughter is very wise, Mr. Reeves. Gets that from her mother? Michael replied, his own voice rough with feeling. A comfortable silence fell between them, broken only by the distant sounds of the FBI operation winding down. After everything they had endured, the chases, the fights, the revelations, this moment of peace felt almost surreal. Michael, Eleanor said finally, her tone tentative. That job application of yours. Probably not appropriate under the circumstances, Michael said with a wry smile. On the contrary, Eleanor countered, I think Meridian could use someone with your particular skills. Director of Security has a nice ring to it. Don't you think? Michael raised an eyebrow. Are you offering me a job? Ms. Harrington, I'm offering you a future. Eleanor replied, her gaze direct and unflinching. For you and for Lily, if you want it. The question hung between them, weighted with possibilities neither had anticipated when their paths collided at a gas station that now seemed a lifetime ago. Michael looked at his daughter, then back at Eleanor. In her eyes, he saw not pity or charity, but genuine respect and perhaps the stirrings of something deeper. "I think," he said slowly, "that would be a very interesting conversation to have." As they walked toward the waiting FBI vehicles, Lily between them, Michael felt something he hadn't experienced in years, the lightness of a burden shared, the warmth of a path forward that held not just survival, but possibility. Whatever came next would be complicated, challenging, perhaps even dangerous. But for the first time since Audrey's death, he was facing the future not just with determination, but with hope. And that, he reflected as Lily's hand slipped trustingly into his, made all the difference in the world. There's a saying among warriors that the hardest battles aren't fought on distant battlefields, but in the quiet moments afterward, when the dust settles and we face what remains. When Michael Reeves stepped between a desperate woman and danger that night at the gas station, he wasn't just saving a stranger, he was reclaiming the man he used to be. Some would call it chance that brought them together, a struggling mechanic and a powerful CEO, connected by unseen threads of loss and betrayal. But perhaps it was something more. Perhaps it was Audrey's final gift to them both, a chance for her research to fulfill its promise, for her husband to find purpose again, for her daughter to breathe freely. The scars remain, both visible and hidden. Wounds heal but leave their marks, reminding us of what we've survived. For Michael, Eleanor, and young Lily, the path forward isn't perfect or certain, but it's theirs to walk together. In a world that often rewards the ruthless and the cunning, they stood for something else, the radical notion that one act of courage can tip the scales, that justice can prevail even against impossible odds, and that family isn't always defined by blood. What would you risk to protect the ones you love? What would you sacrifice to right an unforgivable wrong?